and I want to rise today to express my fierce opposition, as you probably would know, to House Bill 3. This legislation, as the lady from Warren 14 stated earlier, is unconstitutional. It is misguided, even if it were legal, and it violates the separation of powers that is the very hallmark of our government, not only here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but in our nation's capital. You won't find it in the text, but this bill is also a baseless attack on our Franklin Circuit Court judges. I have known them for many years, and I've known many of these judges over the years. Serving as Frankfort State Representative, and prior to that, serving in the local government. And I can tell you from personal experience that these are good and honorable people who have served not only our community, but our Commonwealth with distinction. They have truly symbolized the values we want and expect from our judges. Their rulings have been made without fear or favor, guided only by the law. And yes, the very law that we as legislators write and that our Constitution strikes down when we stray too far from the text. And with that in mind, this bill is a long walk in the wrong direction. And I think the sponsors know that. And it's the reason we did not hear any testimony in committee from the branch of government that occupies the second floor of this Capitol, that being the judiciary. It is also the reason why the gentleman from Jefferson 33, who once worked for our judicial system, has spoken so strongly against it. I am not an attorney, but I think of one of Carl Sandburg's most famous quotes. I think it applies well here today. He said that, I quote, "If the facts are against you, you argue the law. If the law is against you, you argue the facts. And if the law and the facts are against you, you pound the table and yell like hell." Well, I haven't heard a lot of facts supporting this bill, and many have made it clear. The law is in opposition. That means it only has one thing left in its favor: a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. If there is a silver lining, it is that this bill will have a short shelf life. I am well aware that it will pass here overwhelmingly and will likely do the same in the Senate. It will make the same journey after the inevitable veto, and then it will be stopped in its tracks by the very court system it seeks to alter. I understand some in this chamber have not been happy with rulings in recent years. There have been a couple of times when I wished for a different outcome as well. But that does not mean the system itself is faulty. It is vitally important to point out that an overwhelmingly number of these rulings have been upheld on appeal. These judges are highly specialized in the kind of administrative law that is at the heart of these types of cases, and they have additional staff for this very role. This is the proper venue because Frankfort is the seat of government and where the laws and the regulations in dispute originate. And as for the separation of powers issue, we should not be meddling in the way the judicial branch conducts its business. This bill is the equivalent of the Supreme Court trying to tell us how to run our committee systems. It is, in its simplest term, an overreach by this legislature. And finally, Mr. Speaker, judge shopping is, so to speak, can create some significant headaches. As we saw last year in the twin cases that almost led to Governor Beshear's executive order on the COVID-19 being thrown out completely. Mr. Speaker, let me end by saying once again that this is an unnecessary and unconstitutional piece of legislation. It insinuates that our Franklin County Circuit judges are not meeting professional standards. It implies that other circuit judges would let political considerations color their opinion as well, and is another swipe at our governor and at the governor's office for his state of emergency powers, which the Supreme Court unanimously upheld. This is not legislating, this is sour grapes. We have such a short time to accomplish so many things that Kentuckians desperately need during these dark days of the pandemic. This bill, however, is not one of them. And I urge you to vote against this bill and to uphold the rule of law, but more importantly, the system of our separation of powers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.